Hi everyone, this is Eagle News. I am EJ Gonzalez in Washington. It's the first Saturday of the year, January 7, 2023, here in the nation's capital. The week's recap begins with how plans for this year's Tournament of Roses parade stayed afloat despite inflation woes. In Pasadena, California, Eva Basayahe speaks with parade crews who found creative ways to cut costs without sacrificing the vision of their presentation.
From design to the placement of the final flower, most Tournament of Roses parade floats are a year-long endeavor. But with inflation affecting every sector, builders have had to sprinkle in a bit of ingenuity to finish their projects.
Inflation kind of affects everything. The Rose Parade is no different. Some of the ways that I saw inflation impact our float this year is less product than we have had in years past. We were trying to be really sparse, not waste as much as we possibly could. Sometimes even like whatever fell off the float, we would sweep up and reuse again, as long as it was clean enough to put back on there. I know that some of the flowers are more expensive than they've been in the past, and so if you look at this deck behind me, we have a lot of green space, whereas ordinarily in other floats we would have completely covered that green space. It kind of worked to our advantage on this particular float because it is a safari theme. We didn't have to fill in quite everything with roses, but those are just some of the ways that we were kind of trying to scale back a little bit this year.
We're nonprofit, so we're entirely donation driven and we're kind of pool funded, but we still have to buy our own materials. So obviously, steel stock, a lot of components in here, mechanical components going up in price. Flowers they were difficult to find coming out of COVID, and they're still really difficult to find. So we're having to make a lot of purchases, and the purchase costs are getting more and more expensive. It's getting more expensive. So we have to be a little more careful of, do we need this item? Do we need this part? Do we need this steel? Are we going to use this? Something that's nice is that even if you have more than you need for this year, we'll just use it next year. It does help sometimes that we're constantly doing this and we can kind of stock up a little bit so that any uncertainty, if we kind of get it by in a dip, we're set for a year or two.
Because the Rose Parade never takes place on a Sunday, builders had an extra day to finish their floats. But while there was more time, more funding would also have been a big help in the face of rising costs. Eva Basayahe, Pasadena, California, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Now, despite the shift from Sunday, New Year's Day to Monday, January 2nd, crowds still line the streets of Colorado Boulevard. All have been ready to celebrate the sights, sounds, and fragrances of the iconic Tournament of Roses parade. This year's theme, Turning the Corner. Alan and Eva Basayahe with the story.
If you see one of these No Sunday buttons, don't worry, it's not some wild campaign to boycott the first day of the week. Rather, this signifies the Rose Parade's long-standing rule to never have the parade happen on a Sunday.
But even though the 134th Tournament of Roses parade presented by Honda takes place a day after New Year's, the majesty of the over 70 floats, marching bands, and equestrian units carries on full swing.
It still sort of feels like New Year's Day, even though it isn't. The parade never is held on a Sunday, so we're used to that every 7-year cycle, and it still feels like New Year's.
Us, it actually was kind of nice. We were at home for New Year's back up at my parents' house in San Luis Obispo, so we had a travel day to get here, and nice to be able to extend the holidays one more day before getting back to work in reality.
I mean, I think it just speaks to how worth it is that people want to still come out here, even though it's the day after New Year's, right? They probably changed their plans to make sure that they could be here for it. And I don't know, we were here last year and it was on New Year's Day, and I think there's honestly more people here this year than there were last year. So yeah, it just speaks to how awesome it is.
I think getting all these people together, even though it's early, it's cold, yeah, it kind of speaks to how special this event is, and yeah, the excitement.
Everybody here, the feeling is that everybody helps everybody. My sister dropped her scarf and someone came up running behind her to give her back, like, you dropped your scarf. And it just feels like a huge community here. Everybody's excited to be at the Rose Parade, excited to see the floats, excited to be on TV.
It's just so different to have all of these people who are all here to see this thing, and they're all so excited, and it's the new year and we're celebrating, and everybody's talking about, oh, look at that, that's so cool, or I'm so excited to be here. And especially with it having been COVID recently, you know, it just feels so different to be here with everyone and everybody to be so excited to do this together.
I'm hoping to feel excitement. I'm going to feel the cold. I'm going to look at the nice floats, all the people, the cars. I'm excited.
Coming to the Rose Parade to see it in person is the best feeling. You've got to come out, even if it should be on your bucket list. It should definitely be on your bucket list.
We get together in large crowds like this and able to bring the camaraderie back, bring the relationships back that America is united across not only the branches of the service, but across our politics, as well as across the ability for this parade on the second day now of January to join America, and for us to go into 2023 as successful as this parade is and this football game is going to be this afternoon. It's got a great kickstart for us to go into 2023.
All morning, we've been hearing parade goers talk about New Year's resolutions. But Ala's resolution to get new cameras is a bit interesting, to say the least. Tell us again, what's wrong with these cameras?
Oh yeah, you know how they say the camera adds 10 pounds? These cameras, however, add like 50.
You know, that's not...
Happy New Year, everyone!
Evan Allen, Pasadena, California, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
President Joe Biden awards the Presidential Citizens Medal to 14 officers and public servants. President Biden says 2 years ago, on January 6th, America's democracy was attacked. For the first time in his presidency, President Biden bestows one of the nation's highest civilian honors. The Presidential Citizens Medal recognizes citizens of the United States of America who have performed exemplary deeds of service for their country or their fellow citizens. The president says the country is indebted to the awardees.
Say, America owes you all. I really mean this. A debt of gratitude, one we can never fully repay unless we live up to what you did. Live up to what you did. And what you did was truly consequential.
Now on to COVID news. The World Health Organization asks China for more rapid, regular, and reliable data on COVID hospitalizations and deaths. It says the current numbers being published from China underrepresent the true impact of the disease in terms of hospital admissions, ICU admissions, and particularly in terms of deaths. China, on the other hand, maintains that it has always shared relevant information and data with the international community. It urges the WHO to take a just position on COVID-19 after the body criticized Beijing's very narrow definition of virus deaths. All this after the two met to discuss how to combat the current surge in cases in China. Rochelle Feria reports.
The World Health Organization and China discussed the current surge in COVID-19 cases. WHO says the high-level meeting is to offer the health agencies expertise and further support to the country. China's National Health Commission and the National Disease Control and Prevention Administration provide updates on the country's strategy and actions concerning the surge. These include areas in epidemiology, monitoring of variants, vaccination, clinical care, communication, research and development. WHO reiterates the importance of vaccination and boosters to protect against severe disease and death for people at higher risk. The health organization calls on China to strengthen viral sequencing, clinical management, and impact assessment. It also expresses willingness to provide support in these areas, as well as on risk communications on vaccination to counter hesitancy. WHO underscores the importance of monitoring and the timely publication of data. This is to help China and the global community to formulate accurate risk assessments and to inform effective responses. China's steep rise in infections comes after Beijing abruptly lifts years of hardline restrictions last month. At present, the hospitals and crematoriums are overwhelmed with patients and casualties. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
With organizers saying that the Consumer Electronics Show is back big time, our Las Vegas team joins thousands of exhibitors and spectators at what many say is the biggest tech event of the year. Anna Kui reports.
CES, otherwise known as the world's largest technology trade show, kicks off Thursday here at the Las Vegas Convention Center. According to CES organizer Consumer Technology Association, or CTA, this year's show has 2,800 confirmed exhibitors from around the world, up from 2,200 the previous year. Attendance is expected to reach 100,000 this year, more than double of that last year. With the easing of COVID travel restrictions worldwide, this year's event is looking more like normal, with more exhibitors and attendees filling up the show floors. According to CTA organizers, participation from Asia here at CES 2023 remains strong, particularly from Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. And with the recent change in their zero-COVID policy, more Chinese companies are able to travel to the U.S. and will have more exhibitors this year, according to CES list of exhibitors. It's worth noting that CTA requires attendees from China to provide a negative COVID test. The latest innovation in the auto industry, electronics, smart urban transportation, smart city, and the metaverse are just some of the features we see represented from the Asian region. South Korea's Hyundai Mobis unveils a new convergence technology optimized for purpose-built vehicle.
We have our Vision Eye sensor there. Now that houses our PMTS, or our Pedestrian Motion Tracking Sensor. You'll see these eye-safe lights are now guiding pedestrians around the vehicle so that they have safe passage. It's hard to hear, but it's also saying, please walk safely.
Japan's Panasonic, which was missed at CES 2022, is back this year, showcasing their commitment to transform the future through their ongoing innovations in line with their Green Impact Initiative, committing to reduce carbon emissions globally. From health tech to mobility and clean energy, there's definitely much more to see here at the largest consumer technology trade show. From CES 2023 here at the Las Vegas Convention Center, Anna Kui, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
And with inflation felt in households across the globe, we asked some of our friends about things they can do this year to combat the rising cost of everything. Many of them say scrimping a little here and there goes a long way. Take a look.
This year, because of the inflation, I will not buy gadgets like phones or laptops.
A gym membership, a TV or online streaming subscription, and impulse buying online.
Eating out, traveling, and excessive just eating junk food.
This year I want to spend less money on gas and decrease where I'm driving to. I also want to spend less money on eating out, going to restaurants and things, as well as cosmetics and unnecessary needs like pedicures and manicures and those costs.
Okay, so the three things that I would avoid shopping or spending in the year of 2023 are those expensive pocketbooks that I have a crazy fetish for, paying my children bills when they work every day just like me, and buying those stinking cigarettes that I no longer smoke. So that will help me to save some money in 2023.
Be entertainment, groceries, and self-care. With entertainment more specifically, it would probably be like eating out, going out, probably trying to connect more with nature, cooking more at home, which leads to my second top item, which is groceries, like cooking more at home, going around the table, and self-care, because maybe I can do my own manicure and pedicure, maybe find creative ways to cut my own hair, things like that. So those are my top three.
I need to create a list for my groceries and really budget my money, and be more thoughtful and only buy the things that are essential and that I need. Also, to cut back on purchasing clothes. I feel like with fashion, we also recycle styles. So I feel like we can be more, or I can be more creative on how I can put my clothes together. And lastly, I feel like electricity. So that's an ongoing practice that we all wanted to do, that when we're not in the room, turn off the lights, even the electronics at night, or when you travel, turn off everything, or even unplug the electronics that you have. So those are my top 3 things.
Now, several stories from Thomas Likeness today, from half of the Earth's glaciers disappearing, to fish fry time in Pakistan, to tuna fish selling for more than $270,000. These and more on Correspondent at Large.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. 1 week of 2023 is already done, 51 to go. Let's take a peek into the future, the long-term future. Scientists predicting by the end of this century, 77 years from now, half of the Earth's glaciers will disappear. They say limited global warming could save others, the findings published in the journal Science this past week. So, what are the consequences of these giant ice blocks melting? Rising sea levels and depleted freshwater resources. You know, glaciers feed many streams and rivers. The areas most at risk? The Alps in Central Europe, the Andes in South America, and western regions of Canada and the United States. Climate is a factor in what many people put on the table for dinner in many parts of the world. For example, you know, it's winter in northern Pakistan when you can smell fish cooking. It's a climate issue. The summers are too hot to cheaply transport seafood in bulk from down in Karachi in the south. It's a 1,400-kilometer trip by road. So people in the north have to wait until December to have a fish fry. Until about March, some 60 tons of seafood will make its way to northern regions in Pakistan. There it'll be hawked by fishmongers. During those months, the markets echo with the sound of auctioneers selling fish to scores of buyers. In Japan, there's nothing fishy about the price this bluefin tuna fetched. The 212-kilogram tuna sold for $273,000 in the annual New Year auction in Tokyo. That's nearly double last year's price, but still just a fraction of the, get this, $3.1 million a fish sold for in 2019. Of course, during the pandemic, prices dropped, but they appear to be on the rise again. Oh, the buyer of this year's top seller? It was a Michelin-starred sushi restaurant, the Onodera Group, and a Japanese wholesaler, Yamayuki. There's no way an eatery in France would fork out that kind of money for fish. You know, right now they're having trouble just paying the utility bills. The price of electricity is so high that some restaurants are just giving up. They're shutting down, closing the doors. Others are restricting the hours they offer food service, switching instead to just beverage service in the evening. Many owners say unless the government steps in and helps them out, they'll go out of business. And as well as electricity bills, restaurateurs are coping with soaring natural gas prices, and that means it's costing more to prepare those meals, making razor-thin profit margins even tinier. Inflation, another factor. People are staying home because their money just doesn't buy as much as it used to. Not good times at all for the food service industry in France. Well, the biggest toy show in the world is underway in Las Vegas, the annual Consumer Electronics Show, where geeks gather to find out what the latest gadgets are. This year's show has something different. It's the Gallery of Flops. Now, this showcases technological failures. You know, those inventions that seemed like a good idea at the time. Organizer Narek Vendayan says, oh, well, there were a lot of them.
Well, there are many ones. Nike had these famous glasses that are glued on your face. for some reason, or maybe for obvious reasons, people didn't want to use that. Twitter introduced a specific phone for tweeting only, and people didn't want to carry just another phone only for tweeting. You know, there are many glasses, Nintendo, there were many phones that just failed. Amazon introduced its very famous Fire phone, and it didn't work out.
Although economics played into some of those failures, Van Duyn says the #1 reason they ended up on the junk pile, there simply was no market demand for them. Back in 7 days, and in the meantime, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. Thomas Eichner, correspondent at large, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
In Canada, the largest pediatric hospital has taken down 2 of its official websites after cybersecurity issues. In Toronto, Joshua Santillana tells us more on Health is Wealth.
This week, Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children has intentionally taken down 2 of their official websites due to a cyber disruption. This is not the first time in the last month that sick kids experienced a cybersecurity incident. A few weeks back, the hospital had a systems failure, a code gray, affecting several of their network systems. This has caused delays in diagnostics, treatments, and lab results for some patients. It has also affected phone lines and staff payroll. The restoration has been ongoing since then. A ransomware group online offered a free decryptor to Sick Kids Hospital. However, the hospital is currently assessing the offer and as of Monday has not made a ransomware payment. As of January 1st, Sick Kids Hospital says that it has already restored 60% of its priority systems and restoration efforts are progressing well. Sick Kids Hospital is Canada's largest pediatric hospital, taking in about 15,000 patient admissions on average and almost 13,000 healthcare professionals, scientists, volunteers, and research staff employed. Joshua Santillana, Toronto, Ontario, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
The Toronto Hospital for Sick Kids say most of its priority systems are now back. In other news, clean school buses in Nevada will soon begin transporting students as Clark County announces the first 2. Anna Kui on this week's Down to Earth.
The Clark County School District here in Las Vegas operates the largest district-owned bus fleet in the nation. Today, they unveiled the first 2 new electric school buses purchased under the EPA's Clean School Bus program. Funding for the electric bus was made possible by a grant from Nevada Energy and the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. It is worth noting that the Clark County School District, or CCSD, was awarded more than $9 million from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA's Clean School Bus program, to purchase new electric buses and infrastructure. Superintendent Dr. Jesus Jara said that the CCSD is continuously looking for ways to improve student outcomes inside and outside the classroom.
For me, it's an honor that we get to try this out. It's different ways, innovation. Our kids are innovating. Our kids are learning different. We can't continue to do the same old just because that's the way we've always done it.
Currently, CCSD's bus fleet of 1,924 covers 1,500 routes, transporting around 125,000 students daily. The transition to electric bus will cut the district's operating cost, saving approximately $60 a day in fuel costs per bus, with an expected charging cost of about $10 per day at current rates. School officials said this electric bus will get around 100 miles on a single charge, and it will start transporting students in the coming weeks. Officials also talked about what is to come with the program.
There's 24 or 25 new buses coming with the EPA funding for an electric school bus vehicle to grid trial, and we're really excited to see what the future of batteries can do for future decarbonization and renewable energy integration here in Southern Nevada.
According to the EPA, the program will help school districts around the nation to purchase over 2,400 electric school buses that will help in the transition to zero-emission vehicles and also to produce cleaner air in and around schools and communities. Anna Cui, Las Vegas, Nevada, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Now that 2023 is here, what better way to kickstart our health goals for the new year than by enjoying a nature hike? In San Antonio, Texas, Jane Kathleen Gregorio takes us on a tour of the trails in historic Comanche Lookout Park. Here's Adventure Awaits.
Getting back in shape can be as simple as taking a walk in the park. According to San Antonio Parks and Recreation Department, studies show that people who spend time in parks are less sick often, which means less time missing school and work and lower healthcare costs. Local parks like the historic Comanche Lookout Park provide a place for people to not only exercise while enjoying fresh air and beautiful scenery, but also a venue for gathering with family and friends, including our four-legged companions. This 96-acre public park, owned by the city of San Antonio, includes Comanche Hill, the fourth highest point in Bexar County with an elevation of 1,340 feet. Throughout history, the site was used for commerce as well as a lookout point for Native Americans for thousands of years. One of the unique landmarks within the park itself is a 4-story castle-like tower built by retired USA Colonel Edward Coppock, one of the many previous owners of the land before it became a public park. Comanche Lookout Park has 3 trail systems with varying levels of difficulty, from easy beginners with gentle slopes that meet ADA standards, to intermediate with a slightly higher incline, and an advanced level with steeper slopes and no handrails. Each trail leads to the summit. Recently, local artists such as Carlos Cortez and Doroteo Garza collaborated on an art installation titled Najo Jam, which means Our Home. This tribute to over 10,000 years of indigenous heritage in the area is located at the Hills Summit, where visitors can not only interact with the artwork, but can also imagine standing where indigenous ancestors once stood while looking out over the scenic views of what is now the city of San Antonio and Bexar County. Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News, San Antonio, Texas. We live in extraordinary times.
Mio Escenas of our Hawaii Pacific Bureau takes us on a walking tour through downtown Honolulu. Mio highlights the events of 2022 in her part of the world. Take a look.
Fort Street is one of the oldest streets in Honolulu, located between Ala Moana Boulevard and Beretania Street. Measuring about 2,000 feet or 0.6 kilometers, Fort Street eventually became the shopping district of Honolulu between the 1800s and 1950s. In 1968, the city government converted Fort Street into a pedestrian mall.
Now that we're here, let's go for a walk as we look back at the biggest stories of 2022 in this part of the world. Let's go. tuned for more right here on Eagle News. From Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Miwa Senas, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Before we let you go, here's our photo of the week. A snapshot of a train station here in Washington as passengers await their ride on a chilly January night. Awesome architecture, don't you think? Now, thank you all for joining us again. If there are stories or topics you want us to share with you, just comment below. View, like, share our other shows. City Limits with Alan Basalyahe. Connected with Dr. David. Take a seat and join us with Anna Kui. Plate Date with Mike Hudson and friends. Plus, Journey, Stories of Filipinos in Canada with Kathleen Cruz. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Eagle News Live. I am EJ Gonzalez. Happy New Year. We live in extraordinary times. Happy weekend, everyone.